So the last time we spoke to each other was during Good Money Week last year, and you were just so fantastic on those webinars that we did. So I'm really pleased to be speaking to you again. And also, whenever I think of Liontrust, I always think of you in terms of a real leader in sustainable investing. And you've just been sort of awarded something along those lines recently. Is it the Professional Advisor Awards? What was the award that you won there?
Um, well, awards are funny because when you don't win them, you don't think they're important. But when you do, they're obviously a great vindication of what you're doing. There are lots of awards that we've won recently, and I can't even remember what they all are. But a lot of our funds have been selected. What I thought was interesting is that they were winning in mainstream classifications. So the best global growth fund, for example, which is a really interesting shift. And if we think back to when we started this, 20 or so years ago, the idea that sustainable funds would be winning awards over and above normal traditional funds is a real huge shift, and something we're very proud of.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I was so happy to see that. And so, why don't you explain then why it is you're winning these awards? What makes good sustainable investment in your eyes?
Well, I think it's something that's very easy to think about. It's quite hard to do. So I suppose what you need to do is need to make a big effort to understand what's going on in sustainability, what the challenges are, and where the solutions are. And then you need to apply that to how much you think a company is worth. Um, and on top of that, using your influence as an investor, you need to have really challenging dialogue with companies, and promote that positive change, which helps how that business is managed. But you think of it in terms of making it more competitive. So if you have a company within an industry that is really on top of this and is able to offer much more sustainable products and services, it's quite likely that they're going to gain market share in a world where people are increasingly looking at reducing their carbon emissions, etc. So, but in terms of what we've been up to, I think it's taken us a long time to get a team together, and we've been doing it for a long time. So we've got quite a lot of experience. The other thing I think that's quite unique is that all of us have quite different skill sets, which together we're able to make better investment decisions, because while we have people with the classic CFA, sort of standard, sort of traditional type qualifications that you'd expect from an analyst, we also have people that have done PhDs in energy efficiency, in steel, people who have done masters in environmental management or sustainable investment or whatever. And I think that's really important, because I think members of the team that are actually part of the people that make the investment decision really need to go out of their way to try and get their head around, because some of these things seem very black and white at a distance, but as you get into them and you learn more about them, there are some quite weird little nuances that are important, because they're going to affect how well you do. So, and I guess to finalize that is that for any company to outperform, we think it needs to be the right side of a positive trend. The overall business needs to be sustainable and have a really proactive management team, but also it needs to be profitable, making good investment returns or within your time horizon. And it also needs to be undervalued. So that's the trick. It's not just trying to find lots of lovely companies that do great things. It's finding lovely companies that do great things that are basically going to be a good investment. And that's something that we continue to learn about, and we have been peddling that for 20 years or so.
And easy is it to find those types of companies? I think some of the arguments from some of the fund managers that don't invest the way that you do is that the opportunities just aren't out there. Can you talk a bit more about how you identify those companies and whether, the opportunities are growing, whether more companies are thinking about these things?
Yeah, so I mean, there are enough companies out there. If there weren't, we wouldn't be running. And I guess uh, to avoid, so sometimes what happens is when people enter this space, they're very focused on what the company does and whether it's exposed, for example, to renewables, and sometimes at the expense of valuation. It might be that, something, I'm not saying it's an overvalued company, but it's something that looks like a lot of that really good news is already in the price, or most of it is. So I think keeping an eye on that valuation aspect helps you ensure that you're not in a really crowded trade that lots of other people are in. I mean, you could argue if it's a crowded trade for a very long time, actually, that's fine, but I'm not going to go there. So the other thing is that we have really focused portfolios, not because we can't find enough companies, but because we do a lot of work on companies. We want to understand them well. And if our idea that they're producing something we need more of, and therefore they're going to grow in a profitable way more than the market's giving them credit for over the next 5, 10 years or so, then that if that comes to fruition, we want to be able to feel the benefit. There's no point in having 0.5% in a company you've done a massive amount of work on, and it doubles and it over 3 years, and you find that it doesn't really make any difference to your investment performance. So I think that by focusing on a smaller set of diversified companies that are exposed to lots of positive trends all the way across the economy, we feel is the optimum way to do it, as opposed to having huge numbers of companies in there. In terms, are there more companies coming to the market that are doing the right sorts of things? I think there are. I think we're seeing opportunities for new types of businesses. We've seen a huge number of renewable energy operations companies, investment trusts coming to market. I think we'll see a lot more of those, and we're beginning to see innovation in water as a service, all sorts of things. So I think the opportunity set, if anything, is growing as people realise that it's really quite simple. If you provide customers with something they really want, that's quite a good idea, as long as you can make a profit. Why not? It's a good thing to do, particularly if you can shift things towards a more sustainable way of doing things.